Okay. All right. So you all probably have to say that you're okay with the recording. And like I said, I'll go on and get us started. First things first, my name is Sasha Brackens. I know a few of you in the room, and if you are looking back at this, if you're one of the poor souls who I gave the wrong Zoom link to earlier in the day, and you're watching the recording, my name is Sasha. Definitely excited to be here with you all and to really guide you all through trust law, right, and asset protection law. It feels complex, and it is a complex area of law. However, I definitely want to guide you through and make it as tangible and realistic for you to implement a lot of these strategies for your own families, right? So that is my goal. If you guys have questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. You can save them. I'm going to reserve the last 10 minutes or so for Q&A session. So if you want to ask the question, if that's easier to ask, you can do that. But I will also be checking in with the chat to see if I see anything pop up. And for those of us that are watching the replay of this, same thing. You can feel free to email me. I will leave my contact information at the end. If you have specific questions, I am here to answer as many as I can. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I am a licensed attorney. My focus point is on asset protection. So essentially, I do trust planning as well as asset protection strategies. We're going to talk about quite a few of them today, so I won't get in the weeds completely, but you are in good hands. I am licensed to do this, just so you have that assurance, okay? My message to you all at the end of every day, I want you to take away, if you don't take anything away from this time that we have together, I want you to take away that protecting your legacy is not optional, right? A lot of times we kind of think, oh, well, you know, I'm I have time. I'll wait and I'll set up my trust, when I'm in a better situation, when I buy another house, when I get married, when et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's always reasons that we are not set up the way that we need to be set up. And, it's really not an option. We have a lot of clients that come to us and they're like, hey, my parents, we know that they should be doing certain things and they're kind of refusing outright. And a lot of times it's because back when trust law was first established, a lot of the older generation thought, that a letter in the Bible was going to be sufficient, or, kind of just telling their loved ones what they wanted to have happen was going to be sufficient. Or, it's overwhelming and it's like they'll figure it out, not knowing that, probate is a real thing. And if you leave your family or your loved ones without some clear rules, it's going to be really hard for them after you're no longer here, right? So it's almost a two-part. We're going to focus on legacy, but we're also going to chat quite a bit about protection and tools that you can use while you're still here, right? That's the fun stuff. Definitely have that as a takeaway. Um, at the I guess bottom of the if we're building a high wall, right? That foundation is going to really be in all of you understanding in the first place what an estate plan is and how it's going to benefit you, right? So even my clients who are in need of some pretty, high level things, when it comes to them needing for example, I have clients who have, 2, 3 dozen different properties, and we want to make sure as landlords, that they're not in a position where something happens bad at one home. Let's say someone slips and falls, and then now they want to sue and they realize that the client has a lot of properties. They're not going to settle for a couple of months rent off or a hospital bill. They're going to go for gusto, right? So even clients that have those complexities, it's still important that we have that baseline, which is your estate plan, and we have a really solid strategy before we take any steps forward. Okay, so having an estate plan, a few key benefits. Number number one, it is going to create simplicity for your family. It's going to ensure that your loved ones have some very clear rules. It's going to avoid probate court, right? A lot of people don't know. I'm here in California. It depends on the state, but either way, you're looking at your family losing at least $20,000, $25,000 or more at minimum. That's if nobody's fighting, right? That's if there's no drama. They're going to be losing that much on the value of your property if we do not have solid estate plans set up, right? So it's really critical. A lot of times people don't understand how critical it is to have that solid estate plan and have a trust in place and avoid probate, right? It's also going to ensure that your wishes are met. And ultimately, and importantly, in my opinion, right, it's going to give you a sense of control as it relates to your family and as it relates to how things are distributed. So you get to determine the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, the why inheritance happens. And I feel like you're in the best position to do that, right? We don't want, for example, to pass away if any of you have children that are underage or even young adults, right? You don't want to be in a situation where you pass away and your child, number one, if they're young, don't get any assistance, the rest of their childhood. And then also, you don't want them to turn 18 and get 100% of everything, right? And even worse, you don't want someone else to take control and ultimately spend all of the assets that they have or, not properly manage it. So it allows you to still have control even when you're doing how things okay, so yeah, very important. The primary function that we focus on at my law firm, and really if you're getting into estate planning, what I want you all to look out for, don't let anyone sell you a will, especially online. I know a lot of people are members of, certain law companies where you're not really dealing with real lawyers, but there's like lawyer on staff somewhere, and they kind of give you a run-of-the-mill cookie cutter will. Wills, unfortunately, still require probate. Okay, hear me again. A will still requires probate. I don't want that for you all. It's not going to be beneficial for your family. It is not going to prevent, ultimately, them avoiding probate court. Okay, so if you have a will, I want you to still have a trust. Honestly, I don't even really offer wills. I only offer it as part of a bigger trust packet, right? So if you have, for example, underage children, we can grant guardianship rights and things like that through a will that we add to your trust documents. But the meat and potatoes, the bulk of your assets, the bulk of your strategy, your bank accounts, those types of things all need to go in your trust to avoid probate. Okay, a will is not enough. Okay, so I want us to be very clear on that. What a will does is essentially an agreement between three parties. It's you, it is your trustee and your beneficiary. Now, you as the grantor, you might own all of it and sit in all of those hats when you first set it up, right? So it's your stuff, right? So you're the grantor. It's also being managed by you. So you're the trustee. And then ultimately, throughout your life, it's going to benefit you. So you're also a beneficiary. Now, we are going to put other people in subsequent roles, right? If anything happens to you, you're incapacitated. We'll talk about who gets to manage it. Beneficiaries, right? There's probably other people in your life, whether that's a child, a spouse, family members, friends, right? A charity, whatever it is that you have in your orbit that you might still want to protect and take care of, that as well. So it's really important that we have kind of our eye on the prize and we're understanding where everything goes if something were to happen to us. Okay, so it works to ensure that even when you're no longer here, if you have a will, if you don't have anything in place, and you fall out on a Thursday, your family is going to take years, literally, for them to be able to settle your estate, for them to be able to sell a property, purchase a property, pay bills, take care of things. If you have a trust and you fall out on a Thursday, your trustee can walk in and take care of your business as usual on the Friday morning, right? So saying that to say it's really the difference between uh, unimaginable amount of fees and effort for your loved ones. Okay, so definitely very critical. I know we talked already a bit about probate and wanting to avoid it. Avoiding probate is one of the best things that you can do for your family. Again, what probate is, if someone here isn't aware, probate is the court supervised process of distributing your assets, right? So you have a judge who doesn't know you, doesn't know your family, doesn't understand special circumstances, doesn't understand complicated relationship dynamics, right? Doesn't understand anything about you, coming in and making a decision on who gets what and how it should be done, right? They're going to go by the law. So typically it'll be next of kin, but not before they take those statutory fees on top of your assets, right? So they have to get paid no matter what. So let's say you have a house and the house is worth, let's say, $100,000, and let's say you have 4 kids, right? You can put in your trust really clear instructions that I want the house to stay in the family for another generation. I want it to increase in value. I want all of my kids to be able to take out $10,000 from a HELOC or something like that, and take that money or rental income from the property, and take that money for a down payment on their house, right? So you can instruct for that $100,000 value today property to really be worth a lot more to your family in the long run, right? If it goes to probate court or you pass away without having these things in perspective, the judge is going to move to sell it. So they have to wait a couple of years. And then when they finally do come to, it's like, all right, well, sell that thing, right? So when you move to sell it, they're going to take $20,000 at least, at minimum. And that's if everybody gets along, which is very rare. They're going to take $20,000 at minimum off of the top of the estate, right? The remaining 4 parts that are left would be split amongst your children. So now we're talking about your kids, getting a one-time check, no matter their age, no matter where they are in life, no matter if they have, a drug problem or alcohol problem, or they're hanging out with the wrong crowd right now, no matter where they're situated in life, they're going to get their 1-part share of your estate, right? We can prevent that through having a trust, right? So it's really, really critical, and it makes the difference between good outcomes long term and terrible outcomes long term, and even the forced sale sometime of a property, right? If your family goes to probate court and they don't have the means to pay those statutory fees, then that could lead to a forced sale as well, which is really a bad case scenario. Okay, so there's nothing good about probate. I kind of always ask, like, has anyone in the room had a good probate story or heard of a good probate story? I have not gotten a yes yet. So I'll keep y'all posted if it happens. We will definitely talk about that if it occurs. But as of now, no one that I know knows anyone that they know that have had a good probate story. Mine was terrible. I shared through email with some of you that story, but essentially, I've never heard a good one, and we can avoid it by just taking the step and making sure that we have our ducks in a row, and and that we are in a position to pass on our assets stress-free, drama-free, court-free, privately, and without those statutory fees. So next, I want to pause for a second. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but I'm not fully watching it. I'm saying that to say, if you're just getting here, please drop in where you're from. Let us know where you're from. And then also, if you all have questions as I'm going along, I will pause. And I am reserving some time at the end to do a Q&A. So if you are here and you have questions, you can come off of mute at that time to ask your question and get an answer. Or you can drop your questions in the chat. I will go over those before opening up the floor to everyone who verbally might have a question. If you are watching the replay of this, I will share my contact information at the end. Please feel free to email me any questions that you have, and we will go over them via email in that case. Okay. So next, I want to get into really, number one, types of trust and the category that most of them fall under. Okay, so we do internally in my law firm, we probably routinely use about a dozen trusts, right? We have life insurance trusts, we have land trusts, we have, special needs trusts, we have, all these different types of trusts that we use for our clients, depending on where they are situated. Some of them are irrevocable, some of them are revocable, some of them are going to go over. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself when you get on, I can't see whose phone is still on, but if you wouldn't mind going on mute, thank you so much. Yes, so there are lots of different trusts, right? So I want you guys to kind of understand where the primary ones are situated so that you are fully informed going forward, right? So we have our revocable trusts and then we have our irrevocable trusts. Okay, so revocable trusts, those are focused again on your legacy, on the long term. They're going to include documents not only that go over your belongings and your assets and how they should be managed, succession plans for your business. They're going to go over, areas such as your health and medical directives, what you want to happen with your children, if you have children under age, those types of things. So it's going to be a comprehensive package of all the documents that are needed in order for you to ultimately ensure that your estate is protected, that your family avoids probate, that your business goes on no matter what, right? And that you are putting your family honestly in a good position. Now, some clients end up needing also an irrevocable trust, right? And again, there's different types of both, and we'll get a little bit more into that momentarily. But if we think about overarching, right, with the irrevocable trust, those are an asset protection tool at law, right? That is when you're in a situation where you really want to ensure that no creditors, no ex-spouses, no tenants. If I know a few of us are landlords, no tenant, no one can come in and put you in a position where you're losing everything, right? The assets that we put into an irrevocable trust are going to be outside of you. We're essentially telling the court, we're not managing this stuff. It's not for our immediate benefit. So if I do something wrong, or if I'm found that I have done something wrong, no one can come in and liquidate and attach themselves, levy themselves to the property that are within that irrevocable trust. So it's almost like putting a bubble around our stuff, right? So again, when you think about revocable trust going forward, I want you all to think about legacy. Okay, I want you to think about your legacy. I want you to think about your family. I want you to think about just long-term strategy on how you want things to be managed. When we're thinking about the irrevocable trust, on the other hand, I want you to think about asset protection, right? I want you to think about the now, and I want you to think about putting yourself in a position where you're never going to be, a couple of bad moves, one bankruptcy, one divorce, one lawsuit away from potentially losing everything. Typically, we recommend the irrevocable trust to our clients who are, either high net worth individuals, individuals in, rental business when they have a lot of doors. So we don't want something that happens at 123 ABC Lane to create the for sale or 11 something. 5, 6, 7, whatever lane, right? Like we want to make sure that we kind of keep things separate, and having and understanding how those trusts are going to work together is the way that we're going to do that. Okay. So again, if you have questions about trust, you can drop those in the comments. I will get to those, and I'll be pausing here shortly to, check the chat box and see if we have any that need to be addressed now. So like I stated, with irrevocable trust, that's an asset protection tool. Your revocable trust, so your family trust, that's the foundational step, right? Don't pass go, don't collect $200. We have to have that revocable trust. That's how we're avoiding probate. That's how we're ensuring our family's future is solid. And then we also have other tools, again, that we can implement depending on your actual needs, where you are in life, your actual concerns. Okay. So, like I said, if you're in a high risk field, you're in an industry where you might get a lot of lawsuits or you might get a lot of potential issues, then we probably want to invoke an irrevocable trust. Most irrevocable trusts are pretty bulletproof, but timing is of essence, right? We want to set these up before you're in a position where you're facing an immediate lawsuit. That's when they are the strongest, and that's when they are really able to help, again, put those assets in a bubble where it's unpierceable and people can't go in and take anything out that's in there, right? So it makes sure that you're never a couple of bad moves or a bad situation away from losing everything, right? We always have what's in there protected. Now, holding companies are also great. I have a lot of clients who might not be at a level where they need a fully functioning irrevocable trust, because we do have to bring in a paid trustee, an outside trustee. You can't manage it yourself if it is an irrevocable trust in most states. But by having holding companies as an option, those are created anonymously. So my firm creates them anonymously. So not only do you have that benefit, but we also set them up in a way where they're not interacting with any other entities besides ones that you own and yourself, right? So with that setup, it makes it really hard for anyone to ever sue or attempt to attach themselves to that holding company, because again, we set it up anonymously, almost kind of like a business in the clouds that nobody even knows that you have besides myself and you and whoever you tell, which I don't recommend you telling anyone. I always give this example, and it really helps, I think, folks understand how these asset protections tools work, especially holding companies, right? So think of it as if, let's say one of us we were out to lunch, right? So I'm out to lunch with you, and you owe your neighbor $100, right? And your neighbor's walks into the restaurant where we're having lunch, and they're like beelining to the table because they know that you owe them $100, right? You see them coming, you guys lock eyes, you take out that $100 bill. You might write me a little note, right? Hey, Sasha, pay for the check. Pick up, send my mom flowers, and whatever you're giving me these instructions for your how you want your $100 bill spent, right? You might give me those instructions. However, when they walk up to the table, they're like, hey, where's my money? Right? So they're asking you, where is this cash that you owe me? They're your creditor. You actually do owe them money, right? And they're looking for return on that. So your response is, well, I don't have it, right? And they're like, well, we just saw you give her $100. Where's the money? And you're like, when I have it, I'll give it to you. I don't have it right now. And empty your pockets. Like, I don't have anything, right? So they probably are going to turn to me and they're going to be like, hey, we just saw that person give you the $100. They owe me, here's the promissory note that they gave me. They could be, singing to the cows come home to me about what they owe you. But at the end of the day, I'm not, number one, I'm not in relationship with them. They're not my neighbor. I don't know them, right? Number two, I have an understanding with you and I have an understanding of how this $100 is going to be spent. That doesn't include me giving anything to your neighbor, right? You didn't say pay my old debt. So essentially, you're positioning yourself where you are removing certain property to a safe place that is not necessarily under your control or under your hand. So if you do have creditors, whether it's frivolous and someone is just pretending that you owe them and you want to, fight all day until the cows come home about whether it's valid or not, or I do actually owe them the money. Either way, by having holding companies, irrevocable trust, offshore trust, right, we're really positioning you where either way, it'll be in your discretion if you pay anything at all. And it's going to be almost impossible for anyone to number one, know that you have it. Number two, access it, even if they are aware that you have it. Finally, I want to get into offshore trusts for just a moment. We typically use Cook Island and Cayman Island trusts. We also do quite a few Nevada-based trusts. I will say that when we're setting up offshores or hybrids, a hybrid trust is one that we form in another country, but we domesticate in the state. So typically we domesticate those in Nevada. And what these do is it essentially not only makes it irrevocable, but it also allows us to bring in the laws of the country that's favorable to you, right? So this is, again, there's levels to this thing. I want you all, again, if you don't have a revocable trust, that comes first. However, I do want you to be aware of the differences because there's a ton of misinformation and misguided information and sometimes outright bad information, especially online regarding trust, what they look like, what they're about, the differences. So I want you all to be fully educated on at least those differences so you know what you need. You're not going to be sold anything that you don't, right? And when you hear someone mixing them up, you can correct it because, again, each one teach one, right? A couple of other things that I want you guys to be aware of as, business owners, as parents, as individuals, as, people just starting off, wherever you're positioned, you want to have terms within your trust that are for you, right? Too often, and really the purpose of this masterclass, we've started a course. The purpose of all of these things are because there's so much bad information out, and there's so little places that you can get real help and real information without having to hire an attorney full time, that we almost feel like it's a duty to get this information out, right? So you don't want a trust that's not catered to you. You do not want a trust that is not catered to you. So if you go on legalwhatever.com and they're attempting to sell you literally a trust that they just print it from a machine, everybody gets the same thing, it's not at all going to address your individual needs, your individual concerns, right? One of the things, again, that I want you to look out for, whether you're ready to start your trust now, whether you're, looking over the years, either, let me try to. Okay. So yeah, whether you're doing it now, whether you're doing it in the future, you want to understand what terms that you should be looking for your trust. Okay. So I'm going to go over a couple of them with you, and then we will pause for a couple of moments again to go on and check that question or the chat box to see if there's any questions. So number one, in addition to the rules, and I always say your revocable trust is essentially your rule book, right? So in addition to the rules that you're going to put in that revocable trust, you want to make sure that other terminologies are, again, in alignment with where you are and what's important to you and what's important to your family, right? So, for example, there are insurance trusts, right, where we're setting up family banks and we're thinking about like long-term strategy. We got all the cousins, involved in this one family trust. Think about like the Rockefeller method, right? We set those up routinely. Now, you might also just want to make sure that your life insurance policy or the life insurance policies of your immediate household are within your trust, right? A lot of times when you think of people that have life insurance, you have a life insurance policy, which is great. I'm happy if you have one, but you have a beneficiary as either, a child thinking that they'll divide it correctly, all the children, your mom, it's very rarely is it put in the trust properly, right? So what I recommend with life insurance, all of your life insurance policies need to go into your trust, right? Your trust needs to be made the beneficiary of all of those policies. With putting the trust in there, we're going to do another thing. We're also going to write in rules. One moment. We're also going to write rules within your trust that state that the money that's put into the trust is not going to be distributed right away. So I have, for example, a 19-year-old son. If I had give my money to my kids, my son, if something happens to me, is immediately going to get his lion's share of my insurance proceeds and other proceeds that I might have, right? I don't want that. What does a 19-year-old kid need with a large check? It's going to be spent. He might come join me in heaven because, fast cars, drugs, I mean, and we raise our kids right. But at the end of the day, we don't want to give someone young access to too much. So instead, I would write into my trust, give him this amount now. When he is 18, give him this amount. When he is 25, give him this amount to purchase a home. When he's 30, give him this amount to maybe start a business, right? So instead of giving it all at once, I'm going to scale back and I'm going to have rules of how and when things are given. Spendthrift trust. We also want to make sure that our loved ones can't levy our assets that we have now for debt that they want to take on later, right? Bypass trust or provisions. We can put provisions in the trust that are going to be optimal for any surviving spouse, right? There's a lot of blended families. If we have a blended family, we want to make sure that the kids that we had and loved ones that we have in our lives before we got remarried, right, are still well taken care of. With bypass provisions, you can set it up where, if something happens to you, yes, your surviving spouse is still taken care of, but you might also have a break off point where your parents are taken care of, or your, children that you had prior to the marriage are taken care of, things like that. So again, there's not one way. It's a really personalized process. And I just want you all to be mindful of that because there's a lot of people that will say, hey, you just need this, right? And they're handing you a will, or they're handing you an extremely basic trust that doesn't go over any of your actual concerns, okay? So really important that we have our eye on that and we know what options are available to us. A couple of pro tips. Again, sprinkle provisions are critical, in my opinion, in your rule book or in your revocable trust. Okay. You want to make sure that you have those rules, that you have timing concerns covered, no matter where your family's positioned in life. You don't want it all to happen at once, right? We want to sparse it out. We want it to be an over time thing, how they're benefiting. And it's going to give your assets time to grow and develop themselves, right? So again, instead of me, if I have $100,000 life insurance policy, instead of saying, hey, if I, fall over and die, give everybody the money now, I'm like, no, give them this small amount. And then I want you to take the bulk of it and I want you to invest it and reinvest it and reinvest it and reinvest it. And then, in 10 years, give them all this amount, right? So we want to make sure that that's one sure way to actually still grow and create wealth for your family, right? It should never be just one lump sum all at once, send it to them, right? We want to make sure that we're kind of sparsing that out. Again, everyone needs a revocable trust. You should at least have some documents, power of attorney. You should have medical directive. You need to have some documents that guide what things look like for your family. So it should never be a situation where you're like, I don't need anything, right? You need something, okay? So however you're situated, make sure that you have an actual trust. If you're over the age of 18, you should have some documentation. If you're a homeowner, if you're a parent, if you're a business owner, then, that's like double, right? The amount that you actually need to have these things, okay, in place. A couple of things that I want you guys to know. We're talking about revocable trust, right? They're critical to have, but you also have to do a few things. You would be astonished the amount of folks that come to me for a, kind of a relook, or they're like, oh, I want to amend my trust, things like that. And they come in and they give me their trust, and I ask some follow-up questions, and come to find out their trust isn't even valid, right? So when we find that that's the case, we see that it's probably one of these areas that was missed. Okay. First and foremost, you must fund your trust. So if you get a trust packet, even if you have an attorney draft every single page of it, which I do suggest, and they send it over to you, and you sign it in front of a notary, you get it properly executed, you're doing everything, you're signing as trustee, but you never pause and actually put things in your trust is not valid under law. It has to own property. Now, it doesn't have to be a home. So for all of you in here, like, well, I'm not a homeowner, so I don't need a trust. It can be even a list of sentimental property, right? My baby books, my grandpa's lucky penny that he had in his pocket through World War II, right? Whatever those things are, they can still go in the trust, and your trust can still be considered funded. So it's not what is funded to your trust. It's the fact that you taking time to actually fund your trust, right? So I have a whole bunch of tips and strategies for that. We'll see if we have time to go over. But all in all, it's critical that you actually take time to fund that trust initially. Okay. Number two, you want to make sure that you're properly executing your trust. Depending on the state you're in, some states are okay with just two witnesses. I suggest highly, and the way we set things up is that all of the documents are notarized no matter where you're at. So we have clients not only in most states, but also in different countries, and we still have them notarize everything, because as your legal counsel, if I have to go into court for your family and petition for that your trust is valid, and you have it notarized, I can say, look, the grantor not only signed it, but took time to notarize it. This is their signature. They signed it on this date at this time, and proceed, right? So it's very important that it's properly executed. If you are in some states and you do not have these documents notarized, literally, it doesn't matter how beautifully they're written, they will not be considered valid. Okay. Finally, you have to manage your trust. One beautiful benefit of having a trust, I have a lot of clients that have properties different places, right? So if you have properties different places, your family, if you do not have a trust at all, is going to have to go through probate in each place that you own property. If you have a trust and you take time to put your homes in your trust, then they don't, right? It's literally that simple. So we want to make sure that we manage things throughout the years. Another thing that I find, right, we have a lot of times we'll put strong language that people can't, for example, we're not going to honor anybody as a beneficiary that you didn't say in your trust as a beneficiary. In fact, we'll exclude potential children, or we'll exclude future spouses, right? So if you do have a change in marital status, or you do, have a new child or grandchild or loved one, or life circumstances change, you have to update that. Another big one is trustees, right? So someone might say, I want this person to be my power of attorney, or I want this person to be my trustee. If they fall out, or they pass away, or things happen, those types of things warrant a phone call and warrant an amendment, right? So we want to make sure we're checking back at least annually to see where we're at with things, and make sure that we're actually managing our trust. Okay. Really quickly, and I'm trying to see the chat box. Let me see if we have any questions yet before I go on. Okay, I actually, you know what? I'm gonna go on for the sake of time. I'm gonna go on and I'll finish us up, and then we will. I'll save the rest of the time to answer the questions in the chat. So let me see where we're at. All right. Are you all able to still see the screen? Did I go out of it? I think I might have gone out of it. Bear with me. One moment. Where did it go? Let me. Are you all, can you let me know in the chat? Are you able to see the actual screen? Is it missing?
Yeah, we just see you right now, which is great.
So you can't see me, but you can't see my screen.
Right. Not
Okay,
like before.
It's
understood.
loading. It says it's preparing to share screen, but it hasn't popped up yet.
Okay. I know when it broke it. I'm sorry, y'all. All right, let me see.
Yeah, the template is missing. All I can see is you. The template is gone.
Okay. All right. I think, is it back?
Yeah, it's bad.
All
It's
right,
Yes.
smaller
great.
though.
Thank y'all. Okay. So pick up where I left off. Not all trusts are created.
Sasha, can you make the template bigger, or you screen sharing with us?
I'm screen sharing with you. Are you able to, does it look small?
Yes, it's small. It's not as big as it was.
Okay. I think because I am in it now. Hold on one second. Let me see if there's a way. I'm gonna stop the share and I will. All right. Is that any better? I think it's hmm. I'll try one more time. Oh, I see. Okay, I see what I did. All right. Is that better?
Bingo.
Okay, yay. All right, perfect. So, again, not all trusts are created equally. I want to point out the fact now, this, as an attorney who happens to be a woman, who happens to be of color, a Black woman, right, in America, it almost rises, in my opinion, to duty to explain number one, these concepts. Number two, to point out that we've gotten it wrong for a really long time. Um, a letter in your Bible on the bookshelf, which is what my grandmother did, is not sufficient, right? Talking to your loved ones and just kind of explaining, like, hey, if I die, I want this to happen, that to happen. Not gonna cut it. Um, Going online and just printing out anybody's will or trust again is not going to do it, right? One study that I found really interesting, according to, it was on invest.com, the number of those having a plan spiked from 18% to 56% if they have worked with a professional at some point. Those who have worked with a financial professional also feel more confident and prepared to discuss their plan and end of life wishes than those who have never worked with one, the survey showed, right? So this is the moment. So if I could take all of y'all, from that 18% that never had one to 56%, and again, it's just 56%. I feel like I've done my job, right? So we are having a conversation. And congratulations to y'all for showing up tonight, because we're literally having a conversation that most humans generally, and especially those in communities that traditionally wouldn't get this information, will never have. Not only are they not having the conversation, most families will never know what was optional for them, right? And if we can change that, again, to each one teach one. If we can change that, again, we have a duty, right? Now. So, do with that as you wish. But for me, again, I want to put it out there and I want to educate my community, these communities, families, parents, business owners, right? All of these people that come into my orbit, and what the options are for them. Some really scary, yet hard data, right? So for all of my number appreciating folks here, 2 to 3 billion of dollars are spent annually in America, in the United States, on probate cost. The majority of these fees are paid to attorneys representing families in the division. It is an expensive, very difficult process if your family has to go through probate. People grieve terribly. And most people think it won't be my kids, it won't be my family, yours too, right? I had a very close-knit family and probate came in like a wrecking ball. Okay, so no matter where you're situated in life, people grieve terribly. Greed is a real thing. Misunderstanding. My mama wanted this. No, my mama wanted that, right? Those types of things happen. Each attorney that comes on the scene to represent each member of your family is going to literally be paid for years off of your estate. Your family is never going to have to write them a check. At the end, though, everything that you work so hard for is going to be lost to those fees and to administrative fees, court fees, and ultimately, the home that you worked very hard to purchase is now going to be essentially lost in fees, and your family will be lucky if they get a check for $5,000 to $10,000, if that, right? So it is really important that we face these facts when we're thinking somebody will deal with it. It's not a big deal. It's a huge deal. Okay. Only 34%, or one out of every 3 Americans, and this is the richest of us, the poorest of us, middle class, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, man, woman, like all of us, only 1 in 3 have an estate plan at all. Okay. So this isn't even saying a trust. This is just an estate plan. This could be that letter in the Bible. This can be a will, right? So minorities are even more unlikely to have an estate plan. 68% of Black people and 74% of Hispanic people have no estate plan at all. And that's across socioeconomic backgrounds. So again, the richest of us, the poorest of us, everybody in the middle, no matter where you're situated, where you're from, we're not even having these conversations in communities of color, right? Only 10% of Americans, and again, this is back to everybody, only 10% of all Americans have a trust, which is the only way to completely avoid probate. The numbers on minorities with a trust are too low to even track. So at some point, probably, if not this decade, next, I do want to bring on some legal interns and see if we can come up with some data, at least for maybe the communities that we serve. But all in all, there have not been any studies because it's such a small number. It doesn't make sense to, which this is scary. For me, appreciating numbers, this is scary, right? Really quickly, and I'm going to, for the sake of time, I know we have a couple of minutes. I'm going to go the full, I'm going to go till 7 my time, which is 10 Eastern. So for all of you on the East Coast, my apologies. I know that it's getting late. With that being said, I'm going to go get through the rest of these slides and then I'll open up for questions. Okay. So if you have questions and you have to go at 10, so as soon as we finish, feel free to email me and I will respond to answer your questions. Okay. Really quickly, I want to show you guys a case study. This is based on an actual client of mine. and the type of setup that we put together for him, right? So when we have asset protection clients, really anything beyond needing like a revocable trust or just, more basic situation, we do mapping prior to making any moves or setting anything up for them. Okay, so you can see we're starting here with the family trust. This is a living revocable trust, right? As things grow and change and your assets become more expansive, there are a lot of tools at your disposal to keep you protected. So I know a lot of us are in the building phase, and hopefully we'll continue building, for a long time. And as you build, I just want you to be aware that there are tools for you, right? So you can kind of see how all of the things that I mentioned earlier are coming to play. We have the family trust, which is what we started out with. In addition to the trust documents, there's also companies within that family trust. There's operating agreements. There is, subsidiary agreements, which are private agreements, and lease agreements to lease vehicles and equipment back to those operating companies that still all fall under the family trust, right? We have the hybrid trust, which is a Cook Island trust in this instance, domesticated in Nevada. We have a Wyoming holding company under it. We have the land trust. So saying that to say, you can this gives you a bigger picture of how we can use all of these tools in unison to really build out a plan and a strategy that is going to be optimal for you both now and if and when something happens to you for your family, right, for the long term. I'm not going to go over business structure tonight, but one, area that we are able to work through and assist folks with is strategically using those entities. We have a lot of clients that are like, well, I got an LLC, so I'm good, right? My assets are protected because I have an LLC, not keeping in mind that if you have one LLC and you put all of the things in it, now that's just as at risk, if not more, than you are personally, right? So it's important to remember not to put all of your eggs in one basket. If any of you are in a situation where you either, have an abundance of assets, you are in a risky industry, all of my doctors out there, all of my, athletes, if you're in an industry where you might get sued more than other people, if you're a real estate investor, or even if you have a couple of doors and you're just kind of getting into a real estate investment, those types of things, I implore you not only to consider a revocable trust, but also to have a conversation with me about other tools that might be useful for you. Especially, like I said, if you don't need the irrevocable, we can start with the holding company. There's something that will meet your needs, but it needs to be in a conversation. Also, I have a lot of clients who are interested in family banking, aka the Rockefeller method. Keep all the money together is the rule. What the family bank looks like is essentially we're taking insurance policies out on a group of family members, and we can even extend to like spouses and close folks within the family. And there's rules written that when one person passes away, the trust, this family bank, this family trust receives the proceeds of that insurance money. And this is typically should be done outside of any insurance policy that you have for your immediate household. But essentially, it's a fully replenishable fund, and it keeps going throughout generations. This is really a long game. The people that'll benefit the most are the children and grands and great grands of the people who initially start with the family bank, right? There's rules too where you can take out of the pot for certain things. We could put stipulations that they should pay it back, but even if they don't, we'll never give more than you'll receive back, or the trust will receive back once they pass away, right? So definitely a useful tool. If anyone has questions about that, we can chat about that in great detail as well. Honestly, my entire firm's focus is really on protecting assets of first generation wealth, right? So even whether you're wealthy already or you're working towards it, we want to make sure that you're not one lawsuit, one divorce, one bad business move, one crazy tenant away from losing everything that you're working so hard for. So we do family office services, which is essentially a round table. We have, or we can work with your, CPAs, financial planners, real estate brokers. If you have a company, your CFO, right? To really make sure that you have a comprehensive, not only estate plan, but also, strategy for now and long term, as it relates to every aspect of your business and life. Okay. I'm going to send, this is not the discounted code. We do have discounted, one-on-one sessions with me that I will send you all to book. I think this QR code is for the standard price, which is $350 for a 30-minute session, but we have them marked down for $99 for everyone on this call. So you will get an email with that. If I don't have your email, if you can send it to me in the chat privately, I can send you those discounted options. Here's my contact information. If anyone wants to take a screenshot of it, you can. I'm going to move into questions here momentarily. I also want to throw out there for everyone who has provided an email address, or if you want to drop your email address or send it to me, again, as a private message here, which you can do. For anyone who I have their email address, you will be getting an offer. We're launching a course. We attempted to launch it last year. After I went through it myself, which I did do, I was not satisfied that it was going to be everything that it needed to be. So I pulled it off. I refunded folks who signed up for the course, and we went in and really made it something that I feel comfortable and I know will be beneficial. We also added in some live sessions. So it is self-guided in that you'll have forms and you'll be essentially putting things together yourself. However, I myself will be guiding you through. We'll have some live sessions just to make sure that at the end of I think it's 4 to 6 weeks for most people, at the end of that time, that you will have a fully functional, fully funded, properly drafted trust. So again, this is for revocable trust. This is not for the irrevocable. This is not the holding companies, things like that. But if you're in a situation where you know that you need a revocable trust, and maybe you don't want to hire us outright to do it for you, it is going to be a good option. Our founder's rate is $444. So that's $444. Our standard trust start at $2,500. So it's really a good deal because you're still going to have my hand all up in it. And then for those of us on the call who might not have a revocable trust, but might want one, we are taking $500 off of our standard trust packet. So I can send you a special link for that as well. If you don't need a trust right now, but you just want the information, that is perfectly fine too. I really just want to, encourage you to allow us to assist when you are ready. So with that being said, and, with us going to send those emails out in a little bit, and I'll also throw in the chat the link while we're asking questions. I'll throw in the link to book a one-on-one. There are some things, if they're personal, that we might want to talk through one-on-one, but I'll let you know as we open up for questions, whether that's the case or not. Okay, so I am going to stop the share and open up for questions. I'm looking through and I see a few. Does anyone have a verbal question while I'm kind of going through? I'll try to do both at the work both of them at the same time for the sake of time. So if anyone does anyone have a question verbally?
I will jump on.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, such as good to see you.
Yes, you as well. Well, ish. It's good to hear your voice.
Oh, come on, camera. So my first question is, do you offer this class specific to real estate agents who are assisting clients with transactions of probate or trust properties?
The course that we're launching, the course that we're building out is going to be for folks who need a revocable trust. So it's not going to help people that are already in probate. We want to kind of get them beforehand, right? Now, as far as information wise, we can definitely, we work with quite a few real estate agents and brokerages and things like that. So we can definitely offer an information session for your folks. Does that answer?
Yeah, because when you have people going through those, and then it's like you want to bring in an attorney to handle it. As a real estate agent, I'm not trying to answer questions when it's something on probate, and I can't say, well, I don't, know for sure who needs to sign that listing agreement or whatever the case may be.
Understood. So yes, so we have quite a few clients. Now, typically when we take it on, and let me make it very clear, I'm not a probate attorney. I'm qualified to be a probate attorney, but I despise the probate process so much that I avoid it like the plague, right? So we do guide clients, like we can review a trust and let them know whether, it's valid and kind of guide them on the process. But if they need full on legal counsel, I have an amazing network of people that I can, refer them to that can actually kind of go in and assist with the litigation aspect. It's just not, it's not my forte. It's devastating. And God bless you for actually, working with folks and guiding them through that yes.
And I will find an attorney because it's a lot. And then my next question was, there's usually like an asset value in different states that triggers probate. And some people think that you have to be a millionaire for probate to trigger. So do you know what the asset value is in California to trigger probate?
Now, I will say, number one, it varies and it changes all the time. So it depends on, when someone passes on. I will say, if you own a property in California, it's triggered, right? If you have more than like $25,000, I think at the lower end, you're gonna have issues obtaining that money with the death certificate, even if your auntie gave you power of attorney before, while she was still here, all of those things. So it does depend on the state. It's some other factors. I can send you what current things are, but depending on when someone is viewing this, I don't want to out loud say, what it is currently, but I'll send you a personal message on that. But in California, it's probably triggered.
Thank you. This was very helpful. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. Okay, any other questions?
About this trust. Am I on mute?
Nope, but I'll mute you. Okay.
Gosh, I have a
I
question.
had a different question.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I think Jazz, I heard you first.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey girl,
Hey,
you
girl,
look
hey.
great.
You do too.
You look great. So
Thank
good seeing you. So you mentioned earlier, hold on, let me clean my camera because I'm looking real ghetto. You mentioned earlier about making sure that you at least get your trust started, even if it's with small valuables. Is that a way? Because I think the idea of a trust can seem intimidating because you think that you have to have a house or you have to have some big ass asset to start it with. Is that a good way of at least getting your foot in the door and then being able to build on top of that? How does that work?
Yeah, so you should have a revocable. I felt like I saw an echo for me. Okay, it was your phone. Okay. You should have a revocable trust even if you're not a homeowner. So I'll give you an example. I sold all of my properties probably over the last couple of years for personal reasons. Some of you might know, some might not. But in other words, I liquidated, right? With that being said, it's still important that I have a trust because number one, I have underage children. Who gonna raise these kids? We have to lay that out. Number two, I am an adult functioning in society. What happens if I get sick? What happens if I can't? Number three, I have businesses. Where's the succession plan? Where are the rules? Where are the instructions of where everything is? I have to tell somebody, and maybe it's my trust where the bodies are hidden, right? So, in other words, even if you're not a current homeowner, you should still have at least the revocable trust. Now, the complexities of your trust might look a little bit different in your instance, and I do know you, right? So I can kind of speak on that. A revocable trust that lays out provisions for the boys, if something were to happen to you and hubby, when, how, if they would receive, who would have guardianship over them, who is going to make decisions for both of you regarding your health, regarding your well-being, who's going to make decisions on, the businesses, who's going to make, where do maybe different pensions or different, retirement funds go. Life insurance is huge. So if any of you don't have life insurance right now, you can literally get a life insurance policy. Let me set up your trust, put the life insurance in the trust. And if you don't want to work or do anything besides pay for your life insurance policy long term, your family will still be good. You see what I'm saying? So that, in my opinion, is like a cheat code that a lot of, if you see, even, in middle upper class families, and a lot of times in different communities, right? They'll have a housewife who passes away. She ain't never worked one day in her life. And her family is getting, $1 million plus. The family is just paying, her husband is just paying that life insurance policy, right? Now, how she left this earth, that ain't in our business. But the bottom line is she wasn't a worker bee. She didn't own nothing, but yet she's able to still create wealth for her family. And we should do the same.
Hello, that's what I'm looking at. That
Yep.
right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can, and we should, and we will.
That was exactly what I was looking for. You'll
Yes,
hear from.
Boom.
Yes, ma'am. Awesome. We can chat offline. I see the question about asset recovery. It really depends. It really depends on I see you said an old stock certificate. Yeah, well, I'll need more insight as to, if the company's still operational and, if we know who has it, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Book of time.
Awesome. Any other questions, comments, concerns, considerations?
What are the steps to starting one?
Okay, that was Nate P.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, steps in starting a trust. So again, same thing. It varies depending on who you're working with. If I'll take you through our process with my firm. So first thing we do, we typically start, most clients, if they're either referred to us by someone that we know, which we already kind of have a warm transfer or, warm introduction, we typically start with a call. After the call, during the call, I'm kind of assessing how they're situated, family dynamics, right? Are they married? Are they single? Were they married before? Do they have children? Do they have parents that need care? Do they have, do they own property? Are they renting? Do they have life insurance, right? How big is their debt? Those types of things. So we're trying to get a run of the mill about, assessing what your potential needs are. After that call, if we decide to move forward and work together, we send over an engagement letter, the payment links. We do have in-house payment installments. I will throw that out there as well. They're interest-free completely because we want our folks to be able to get this done. So after that's taken care of, we move into the full intake process. So we send an intake form over. Folks fill that out to the best of their abilities. We get that back. Meanwhile, we're setting up a file based off of that initial conversation, right? So I already have a full file for you with everybody's, at least basic information, all the documents that you're going to need, everything that's going to kind of incorporate your trust packet individually. From there, we move into we set up the intake call. So we'll kind of get you on the line, pick your brain. We'll go through a series of if-then statements, right? If something happens to you, what do you want it to look like? If something happens to spouse, what should it look like? If the children are acting this way, what do you want it to look like? If, your mama did that, what do you want it to look like? So forth and so on. So we go through all of those kind of series of brain picking to sparse out those rules and how you want things to look ultimately. Then we get into the full drafting. So we draft all of the documents again, custom to you. After everything is we would send it over to you for review. We'll have another call to kind of go through questions if you want anything updated after you sleep on it, pray about it, think about it, talk about it, whatever you need to do. Then, as long as we're both on the same page and we feel that it's strong and it's good to go, we move into the second phase, which is, well, I guess that would be the third phase. So the first phase is the intake process. The second phase is the drafting. The third phase is review. And then we would move into executing the trust. So we want to get it notarized, as I stated before. Different states have some different rules here and there. So we just make sure that it's executed properly. And then finally, it's just kind of managing it, right? We move into funding. So we will help you get all of your assets in it. And from there, it's really smooth selling. It's not until a major life change, you buy a new piece of property, things like that happen and change, that we would have to then, come in and make amendments or add property to the trust, so forth and so on. So it's pretty easy to manage from there. That's the process, as far as if you do the traditional done for you services where you have us draft everything for you. Now, if you want to participate in the course that starts later in the month, that I mentioned before, we're going to essentially lay out all of the documents in the form. So you would fill those out. You would use custom templates that we've created. And you would kind of go in and we will tell you, where things should be updated, what areas to look at. And we essentially go through it together. And with the 4 calls that we've added to that course, those are live. So we'll essentially kind of do it almost like homeroom when we're all going in and looking at whatever that assignment or that block is together. So we'll go through all of those sections together and helping you essentially custom build the trust. We'll go through, the build out of it. We will go through the executing of it. We will go through the funding of it. And then we'll give you a ton of tips and strategies for management. And then ultimately our goal is that when you are ready for additional things to kind of add to it, to get the holding company, to start the business, to, buy the land, that you'll come back to us and allow us to assist you with those aspects of life as well. Is it clear?
Yeah,
Okay.
it makes sense.
Okay,
it's clear.
awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome, of course. Okay. Any other questions, comments, considerations? All right. Oh.
Sasha, hypothetical question. I mean, this is real hypothetical, but like, if a person was up in a situation, whatever, and you didn't have any more siblings, or you didn't have kids, or if you wasn't married, like, what would be your advice to somebody, like your estate, your home, life insurance, all that? Where would that go to? Would that just be swallowed up in the state?
Yeah. So
or is it something like you can donate it to a special fund? something like that?
Yeah. So, and I actually recommend in those situations, sometimes more than others, right? Like if you have a spouse or you have kids, even if you don't like these people, right? Ultimately, they're going to get the things. Now, if you don't have those people in your life, um, then yes, the state is going to swallow quite a bit. Now, the state will have someone do due diligence to look for your like next of kin. So they'll, it'll probably be some random fourth cousin somewhere removed, right? That they might find, but it'll essentially be a stranger. It'll be the state and some stranger in somebody's bloodline from forever ago eventually might get something. What I do recommend, even people who don't have immediate family, a lot of them tend to have really close friend groups, right? Sometimes people do away with their family and they decide to kind of make their own, and the people, who become family throughout the years. So it does not have to be a blood relative that you're leaving assets to, or even a, relative through marriage or relative through, those kind of methods of having relatives. So if you have, your best friend's kids, if you have a cousin, if you have, a neighbor who was always really kind to you, if you have, if you're involved with a charity, or even just like, hey, I love what the, Parkinson's Association is doing. I had a friend one time who had Parkinson's, so I'm gonna, send this there for research or whatever the case may be, right? So, in other words, we can find someone that you would feel comfortable with receiving certain items. Even for those of us who do have, spouses or do have, who do have children or do have parents or whatever the case may be, we don't have to necessarily give everything to our immediate, spouse or our family. We can leave rules in our trust that say, hey, give Jasmine all of my handbags, give Nate my car, give Pierce, my record collection, right? So saying that to say you're never locked into having to give any one person everything. It's really a matter of discretion and how you feel. And, if there's other people in your life that you prefer over your family, or that you would want to have it even over your family, or if you don't have family, we can find who those people are to gift.
All right, I got you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Awesome. I have a private question. Let me ask if it's okay for me to read it out loud. Okay. Okay. Oh, I see it somewhere else too. So, okay. Yeah, we can. Okay. So, the question is, would you require documents or proof of some of the assets, stocks, or life insurance in the trust as the attorney, or do you just document the trust based on word of mouth? So initially in our intake forms, we are basing it off of word of mouth. You're letting us know what assets that you have, and we're kind of preparing a place for them, so to speak, within your trust. Now, when it gets to funding, if you don't have the asset, we can't fund it to the trust, right? So at that point, anything that we might have written about it becomes null and void. I will add, because a lot of times people think we understand, and, the powers that be in this space understand that things change. So let's say, you have a trust, we set up your trust this month, and, next year, you sell property that we originally put into the trust, right? It's okay. The trust is still valid. It's not going to be like, throw the whole trust away because things change, right? So what we'll do is let you know how we go about putting new property or different property as life changes in the trust. Some things we can remove from the trust as well. But the bigger, I guess the bigger issue is just making sure that we're capturing to the best of our ability what you have going on at that time and in that moment. And then from there, if things change, we deal with it as it comes. But it's not critical that we see proof of these things. However, proof is absolutely needed and it's necessary when we're actually moving to fund the trust itself. Okay. Any other questions? No? Are we all feeling good about things?
This was great. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Of course. My pleasure. And thank you all for taking the time to pop on, especially those of you who couldn't get on earlier. I appreciate your time and your energy and you all being here with me. You could be anywhere in the world, but you decided to be with me. And I'm grateful. So yeah, thank you guys for your time. Again, I will be sending out an email to everyone this evening with all of the follow-up things that I mentioned. If you do have any questions, concerns, considerations in the meantime and in between time, you can feel free to message me and let me know. I am dropping in right now because I didn't earlier, although I told y'all I would. I'm dropping into the group right now both the discounted, the $99 consultation assessment that we do. And then I'm also going to drop in the link to the course that for the founders rate. This starts on the 28th of the month. We want to give time to allow some other folks to enroll. And we have not mentioned it to our greater email audience or our, Facebook group and things like that. So I'm going to put it here so y'all get it first. And I will email everyone with next steps and follow-ups. And again, let's keep the lines of communication open because it really does a lot of times take having them open in order to do what we need to do and make sure that our assets are protected and that our legacy is strong. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to stick around a couple of more minutes just to grab the email. So if anyone has any additional questions, you can feel free to still pose them. Other than that, have a beautiful night. Thank you for waking up a little later for me.
Thank you, Sash.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Sash. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Yes, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Let me stop the record.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.